amazing people out here. You feel me? My name is Rob. I'm the CEO of PUTINWORK, a creative company out of Boston. And today is a day of knowledge, wisdom, expertise being shared, and development being had in real time. So I appreciate every person that came, and I appreciate every person that's here. You feel me? So when it comes to it, shout out to RAP. RAP is a company, is an organization, a student-led organization by Harvard that I've been a client of, that provides contracts, legal consultation, and just giving better understanding of the business we're in, because we're in a business. If you create something out of nothing, you're in business. You're in the industry, because that's what the industry is, taking raw materials and turning it into something that can be, you know what I mean, sold. So understand that the minute you make a song, the minute you record your voice, you just created a product, and that product needs to be protected. So these people on this panel right here are in the business of protecting that product, in the business of selling that product, in the business of growing and developing that product. So these are the people that you guys need to be taking understanding from, because I tell people all the time, this is a business of all information. All business is information. You can take the information, you can do what you want, and make it how you want to make it. So organizations like RAP, people like the panelists here, me, Gil, we're all resources. And the way you utilize your resources determine your destiny and your fate. So really understand that we're in a powerful room right now. And thank you to each individual that's going to share this stage, each panelist that's going to give their knowledge. It does not go without gratitude. And thank you to RAP. Every artist here has to, I know we're in a small market, so a lot of times people want to say, oh, you can't, oh, you can't, oh, you don't. But then we're in the same market that has a university that's older than America itself, and they have resources that are completely free at our disposal. We're sitting at a Harvard Law School class completely free with some people you can't pay to be with. So this ain't cheap. You know what I'm saying? So understand, a lot of places this can't happen. You know what I'm saying? A lot of places this can't happen. So be appreciative of what you have at your disposal and make something shake of it. So like I said, one last time, shout out to RAP. Shout out to my partners Andrew and Landon, the co-president of RAP this year. And like I said, RAP has been an organization ran in Harvard for a while, and it's going to continue to be. So the same way I use them as a resource, I encourage you guys to shoot them an email for next semester. Shout out to Brian Price. And you know what I'm saying, shoot them an email next semester and see what you can do with them. Get your contracts right, understand the business you're in, and understand the industry you're in so you can grow in it. And that's all it is. So thank you to the panelists. We're at the Hitmakers Symposium, Local Sounds, Global Impact. And I'm going to pass it to the amazing Iffy, who's going to lead this panel. And, you know, she can speak a lot better than I can. So thank you, Iffy.
Okay, thank you, Rob, for that incredible opening. Literally couldn't have said it better myself. As he said, this symposium is being put on by the Recording Artist Project. We are a student practice organization, so for all of you artists, if you need help with anything, legal, business, please hit us up. Today we have an incredible panel ready for you guys to speak to local sounds and global impact. We're going to start off by giving you guys some context with their background, then we're going to get to some questions, then we're going to open up the floor for some Q&A from you guys. Okay, let's get into the bios. So first we have Binta Brown, the founder of Oma Lily Projects, a full-scale talent management company. Binta Brown is the producer of the independent documentary Fly Like a Girl on Hulu, a partner in independent studio Indie Atlantic, and has represented a roster of music and TV personalities that include Hannibal Buress, Vic Mensa, and Chance the Rapper. The former head of operations at Keep Cool/RCA Records, Binta has been listed on Billboard's Women in Music list, Hip Hop Power Players, as a Fortune 40 under 40 business leader, and on Roots 100 Most Influential African Americans list. She is on faculty at NYU Tisch School of the Arts, Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music. We also have Muyiwa Awunyi. He is a highly regarded executive in the music industry, known for his expertise in talent management and the production of music and videos. He currently serves as the manager for Thames, Leka Beats, and Deeds Art. Yeah, y'all didn't clap when I said Thames. Okay, exactly. And he has previously managed managed notable figures such as Nanso Amani. Muyiwa is also the CEO of the BSB Agency, a talent management company he founded. Muyiwa has gained significant recognition for his contributions to the music industry. He was named one of the top 10 African music executives to watch at the beginning of 2022, and one of the top 30 executives in the first half of the year. He was also featured on Billboard's Managers to Watch article. Next up, we have Rayan Falalji. Rayan has proven himself as a skilled artist manager with his client Redveil, where he has been responsible for overseeing his client's overall career and business growth through strategic planning, marketing, creative direction, partnerships, and data analytics. He has achieved impressive results, including growing total music streaming numbers across all platforms from below 10,000 to over 100 million streams in just over 2 years, and helping his client's annual income increase by 10 times in 2 years. Rayan has also directly aided in his client's creative direction in songs, music videos, cover art, marketing plans, merchandise designs, rollouts, and many more. It's a long list. While utilizing streaming and social media, data analytics to develop strategies that contribute to overall career growth. Last up, we have Matthew Adesuyan. Matthew is the co-founder of Bad Habit, an imprint of Atlantic Records. If you are an Afrobeats fan like me, you know who he is. Through Bad Habit, Matthew has managed and released music for an impressive artist roster, including Grammy Award-winning Nigerian artist Burna Boy, as well as critically acclaimed acts such as The Neighborhood, Umi, and Geek. Matthew attended Morehouse College and Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, where he studied business administration. Please give a round of applause to the amazing panelists. So truly, I know that your bios probably just scratched the surface, and we are all so interested in hearing more about you guys and what your journey has looked like to get you to the point where you are today in your careers. Matthew, if you would like to start, and we can just go down the panel.
So what is it to get here? I think I've always just used music as a way to understand the world around me. And I just couldn't see like what music wasn't the most important thing in what I do, how I understand culture and people and how the world works. So the kind of artists that we always try to work with are the ones who look at the world as an opportunity to make it better. And the art they make is out there to make it better, to create a conversation that makes the next person make better. So I think when we look for artists as a company or myself, it's still like being that kid that was like 12 years old on SoundCloud, trying to make a playlist of artists that nobody else knows and be inspired by them. So we're trying to like kind of constantly have that energy behind everything that we do. Everybody has a voice. So yeah, I think I've just been constantly inspired by music and art and entertainment, how it shifts culture and how it shifts the way people think globally. So one kid from Boston can make the whole world change the way they feel. So yeah, that's kind of about that.
Hello everyone. For me personally, my story was kind of different. I grew up in Lagos, Nigeria, where it wasn't cool to do anything musical. As you can imagine, your parents want you to be a lawyer, a doctor, or something they can brag about with their friends, right? But when I was in school, music was my escape from everything I hated around me, because school was boring. This is Harvard, by the way, so this kind of But for me personally, school was just not it, and I felt caged. But music was that liberator for me. And then randomly, I just started delving into creative things like selling clothes and doing events, etc. And due to the network I built organically, one artist said I should manage them. And that was it. I fell in love with, community building, branding, understanding how music makes people feel, even understanding that human beings are tonal creatures as before we're creatures of understanding. So we react to tones before we even understand English. So all of that has literally made me who I am, just by following what is true to what I believe is liberation. So yeah.
Hi everyone. For me, I would say it started when I was really young. My oldest brother was kind of teaching me stuff. Like, he taught me how to burn CDs into iTunes when I was really young, which obviously kind of doesn't exist anymore. But that, and then he bought me my first DSP subscription when I was in elementary school. And I had just always really loved music growing up, but what has sort of brought me into it directly was I was doing photography, and I started taking photos at concerts, and when I was doing that, I kind of started to meet artist managers, publicists, promoters. So I started seeing this whole industry, and that there's so much that you could do in it, and I didn't really know that that existed prior to that. And from there, it was just really wanting to learn everything, meet people, kind of like what you guys are doing now. But yeah, I think that's sort of where it started, and it just kept going into management. Yeah.
Y'all don't have to clap whenever we speak. I just want to relieve you of that obligation, if you feel it. In terms of my journey is unorthodox, I think, for most contemporary artist managers. But my hope is that it won't remain unorthodox. I grew up, like all of these folks here, loving music. Music is my first language, it's my last language. I loved it so much that I ended up studying 11 different instruments, learning to play them with some proficiency. And as I was looking at career paths, I wanted to be like Clive Davis or Walter Yetnikoff or any of the other great or formerly very well-known executives in the business. And the thing that I noticed about each of them is that they had law degrees. And so I was under the impression that in order to become an executive in the music business, it would be very helpful to not just have a deep love of music, but also to have a law degree. And so my interest in the law went beyond music and contracts. I have a deep and profound love of justice and fighting for the rights of others. And a deep appreciation for the consequences of those who fought for rights so that I could have the opportunity to be here, that all of us who are here could have the opportunity to be here at Harvard talking about music, which is the thing more than anything else that shapes our culture and our relationships, our connections with one another. In any event, so I went to law school. I went to Columbia Law School. Harvard deferred me a year. I didn't think that was cool. And I was like, screw you, I'm going to Columbia. It worked out. It's worked out really well. Can't complain. And went to law school. I started my career at a firm called Cravath, Swain & Moore. Those of you who are law students or even business students in the room are more likely than not, I hope, familiar with Cravath. Cravath, at least at the time, represented most of the biggest entertainment companies in the world. And so that was an extraordinary experience for me. I worked on massive mergers and acquisitions. I put together the board of what was then known as Time Warner, which was at the time one of the biggest media and entertainment companies in the world. I broke up the company DreamWorks, which was a film company, and spun one of those companies off, and I helped take a lot of companies public. And it was an amazing experience. One thing led to the next. I made partner at another law firm called Kirkland & Ellis. My father, after a few years of that, pulled me aside and said, "What are you doing? I thought that you wanted to work in the music business and the entertainment business." And I said, "I do." And he said, "Well, why don't you quit your job and start your own company?" Which was very scary. because I had all of the benefits and income of a partner in a major global law firm. And he said to me, you will fail and you will fail miserably, but your mother and I will be here to support you when you do, and you'll figure it out. He said, but you have to put one foot in front of the other and give it a shot. And so one thing, again, led to the next. I ended up working with an artist, somehow ended up getting involved with the social experiment guys to support that particular artist. Then they're like, move out to Chicago. I moved out to Chicago. I ended up doing what I did with Chance for a few years, and that's how I got here. So it's been a long and winding journey, but well worth it. And for those of you who are law students here, I would encourage you to take your studies very seriously, because I do believe very firmly that having a law degree has been extraordinarily helpful to me.
So Mensa, you spoke a little bit about the thought process you had before you decided to take a leap of faith into the music/entertainment industry. Can you also speak to your decision-making process as an artist manager, and can our other panelists also elaborate on that as well?
When you say my decision-making process as an artist manager, what do you mean?
When it comes to decisions about your artist.
Oh, I don't make decisions without having conversations with my artist. You know, our jobs are to be advisors and advocates, but not necessarily deciders. I think, at least for me, and with the artists within my work, if I'm running around making decisions without consulting my artist, then I can't properly represent them. What I tend to do is the same thing I did as a lawyer, which is I come up with a strategy, with a method. I recommend the strategy to our artists. We discuss it. They push back. I push back. They push back. I push back some more. We get into something that feels like it's going to work. And I think it requires, as an advisor, it requires a lot of patience, and also requires the humility to understand that there are going to be times when your client, when your artist says, I don't want to do it that way. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes it means that you might not be a particularly good mix, right? Because there are some things that are just so obvious. But other times it's a really critical and crucial time for me as a manager to learn and to listen. So I don't make decisions for my artists. We make decisions together. I try to create an atmosphere where it's mutually beneficial. We're each other's partners. I don't win if my artist isn't winning, and if my artist is losing, then I'm definitely losing. So we have to be simpatico.
Louis, what would you also like to speak to this?
Yes, so the word I like to use is alignment, right? If, for example, you're trying to release music and your artist has a particular way they want to do it from their creative standpoint, which is very much valuable because at the end of the day it's their art, it's also important to tell them things that they may not know as a result of what your expertise is. And that's when the conversation starts to happen. So, for example, I remember when we wanted to shoot a video that never came out with Thames, and the idea was basically impossible. I had to basically speak to us to how you can make this possible, but at the same time you have to cut down some things, which you'll start about. But at the end of the day, you got what we wanted to do, right? So like Lisa said, it's really a communication thing between managers and artists. Because at the end of the day, the job of the artist is to make music, the job of the manager is to market, sell, brand, and push the music out. So it's very important that everyone's on the same page before the release. So yeah, that's what I was saying about that.
Ray or Matthew?
I think for me, there's like two sides of it. There's like the part where you kind of want to be so entrenched within the artist's mindset where you can answer like basic questions without having to get too deep into it. Especially like, let's say the Neighborhood. When they first came out, they were specific about everything they wanted to do was in black and white. We got Jimmy Fallon offered. They said that they wanted to see it in black and white. If they can't be in black and white, they will do it. So there was a clear line in the sand from before when we even started having conversations and like, this is the way they want to do it. We didn't end up with Jimmy Fallon, we ended up with Jimmy Kimmel. But it was like, like that understanding of they have a vision, we're gonna execute the vision from the beginning to the end. And if you don't align with that, then like you said, there was that clear understanding. In other cases, it's a bit more of a battle, and it is that understanding of following. Sometimes you gotta follow crazy, because like Burna is very intuitive, like naturally. So I know for this last album, we had a whole different single, a whole different rollout set up, and he pressed me every day. Like last has to be the first song. I refuse to start this album rollout without that song being the first song to set the tone. And there was a lot of things that were uphill battle. Clearance when Braxton, she had to passing the family, so getting in touch with her was basically impossible. We had an announcement set with the cover of Billboard that was coming in 2.5 weeks. He was about to do the Billboard Music Awards show, and he wanted to perform that song that was not out yet, that was not cleared. But he was specific, and once someone is that specific, you kind of have to follow that energy, especially with artists. They have like that sensitivity to the world around them, what they are, and what they want to put out there. And sometimes you got, like I said, you follow crazy, and I did everything, the team did everything to get that clearance done, and obviously that moment kind of changed everything for our trajectory for the rest of the year. So I think there's times where you really gotta like be aligned with an artist's mindset, their vision, and their voice. And sometimes you gotta be the one that brings like sanity into it and be like, yo, this is damn near impossible, or it's impossible. But that's the thing about being in the creative world, you can sometimes make impossible things possible. So it's been it's a journey for sure.
Yeah, I mean, what everybody's saying is great. I think for me, I kind of see it as like the artist is like the quarterback and I'm the coach. And I can take timeouts, I can run play, or I can write down plays for them to do. But at the end of the day, they're going to choose whether they want to listen or not because they're on the field. I'm only on the sidelines. So there's definitely been times where I see something for Redveil and he doesn't see it. He's like, that's not me. But at the end of the day, it's your job to sort of bring a different perspective and make them try and think of things from a different way. Because sometimes they're going to not see things that you see for them, and that's because they're kind of in the driver's seat, and obviously you can have more of a bird's eye view as a manager. But most importantly, I think one thing I've learned is you kind of got to let them fall in their face sometimes. Because even, it's good to follow crazy, like Matthew said, but and it's also going to bring sanity into it, but if they're really entrenched in something and you're really sort of on the other side and you guys are just going to have that disagreement, there's only so much back and forth you can have until they're like, I really want to do it this way. And you can let them do it that way, and it might not work out, but then afterwards they'll be like, oh, you're right, and come back to you. And, that's kind of another thing, another sort of aspect of artist-manager relationships is it's a developed trust over time. I mean, obviously it's a very tight-knit relationship, but that, if he falls on his face 1, 2, 3 times, the next time he's gonna be like, oh, maybe I should just listen to you, even though I don't feel it in my gut. But yeah, you gotta kind of let them do what they do, and you can advise them, but obviously you can't make decisions for them. And it's also their art, and artists are just naturally like kind of sensitive, introverted people, and you can't really tell someone else what their vision is. At the end of the day, it's theirs, and kind of just gotta let them do what they do, even if you really, because there has been a lot of times where I'm like, I really think, you should make this song sound this way, or I'm like, I think we should go with this version of the cover art, or we should roll it out this way. And he's like, no, I really want to do it this way. And there's been times where I've been right, or he's been right. So it's sort of just, having an open line of communication and sort of letting the road sort of like pave itself in a way, because as long as he's not doing something that's gonna absolutely like tank his career, like I'm gonna drop a country song tomorrow as a rapper, then I'm not gonna be like, no, like absolutely. Then I would intervene in that case. But if it's like I want to make this hi-hat sound this way, I'm gonna be like, okay, that's your choice. But yeah, that's sort of how I approach things.
So Rayan, you speak to this idea of trust between you and your artists. How do you also establish trust between your artists and the rest of their team? And how do you build a reliable team around your artists?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for our team specifically, it's been a lot of people who we've just known for a long time, and that they've just kind of built onto itself organically. For example, like our agent, I had known him since before Bill really was trying to get booked for stuff, and when Bill had momentum, he was kind of interested. But people like our creative director, him and Bill had known each other since they were like 13 years old. So to me, it's about just organic relationships and not really rushing in to get another person in the team, because sometimes, you don't want too many cooks in a kitchen. But yeah, I think that's how I sort of approach it. And sometimes you do need a person to help you, and you don't really know them off top. But it's sort of just like another thing of, for example, like we started working with publicists last year, and I hadn't really worked with a publicist before, and I hadn't really known this guy, but sort of just taking things slow with them and seeing how they do, and if it's a good fit, it's a good fit, and if it's not, it's no hard feelings.
And I'm curious if any of our other panelists have thoughts around building a reliable team around your artists, or any experiences you might have had.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So
I'll go after you.
okay, so in terms of team building, right, it's really the thing of scaling. So when we started, we were just 3. So that was me, my co-manager, Wally, and Thames. And that was enough for that time. And then we had something called Try Me that did really well. And then we thought, okay, we need a videographer, okay, we need a photographer, okay, we need a stylist. And that was okay for them. And the selection process was basically, first of all, how well do we connect? How easy do we flow? What's the energy when we're together? Is there love? Is there trust? Is there a level of understanding? Is there communication? And then obviously your expertise. How well are you at what you do? And then, like you said, as we expanded, we decided to get people like publicists as well, PR people as well, agents as well. And what we did was basically what we did at the beginning, which is how good does this feel, and how good are you at your job? And as you scale and as you get bigger, I think that's a very good, compass to use in terms of building your team. So that's all I'll say.
So what I would add to that is, so as trust as between my fellow team members is about treating one another equitably, right? So I co-manage Vic and Joey Perk with Peasy, who's a studio owner, manager, and entrepreneur in Chicago. And we split everything straight down the middle, right? We don't play the game of, you brought this in, you're doing it, like, we quarterback everything together, right? So by treating each other fairly, like, so for example, late last night, we were going through the books, and we were going through all of the revenues that were brought in, and how we were gonna split it up. And we're honest with each other. Transparency, communication, and treating people equitably is incredibly important. And that same thing extends to the other professionals who we bring in, whether attorneys, legal counsel, publicists, agents, labels at a certain point. It's really about communicating and communicating well, being transparent, sharing information, and not withholding information. If you find yourself in a position where you think you have to withhold information, then I think you have to ask yourself if the relationships make sense, right? Because as soon as you are in that position, you're gonna, you start to, people become suspicious because they know, people always know that there's something that's not being shared, right? So, and that's for everybody, it's just human nature. So I think that transparency, good communication, sharing information in a timely way with folks, letting people know as soon as things have changed, and just being honest about the money. And then when it comes to the other professionals, when you bring in, making sure that you're paying those people as well, right? I think a lot of distrust is caused in this business by people not paying each other on time, paying each other equitably. So for me, that's just kind of like the thing. The only other thing that I would add to that, and to what has been said so far, is that it helps to have alignment in your values, right? So if you work with somebody who has fundamentally different values from you, you may not be able to work together for very long, right? So trust is sometimes a function of being able to, you're coming from the same place in terms of what you want to achieve, what your goals are, and what motivates you. So those, at least for me, have been things that I've learned along the way and that have been very helpful. And maybe next year I'll have something different to say. Who knows?
Thank you. And so, taking this in a slightly different direction, can you guys speak to how an artist's identity factors into their brand and music making, and how you take that into consideration in their creative process?
I think a lot comes with that. I think an artist's identity is so so much of it comes from self, and so much of it comes from the vision that they have for themselves, that you really need to be aligned with that, understanding who they want to be and what they want to represent to the world. It's kind of the basis point of the relationship between the two of you. I'm talking about the manager and the artist. And how that then builds into their brand, builds into music and playmaking. I think we work in two businesses that cross. We work in the arts business and we work in the entertainment business. And the arts business is the artist, that's their identity, that's them being reflective, being in this world and saying, this is my story, this is the story I want to tell, this is how I see the world at this moment in time. But the entertainment business is who's listening to this, who's going to the shows, who's being inspired by this, who are you speaking to? And it usually starts at a niche level where you want that niche level to grow into, I want baby to listen to it, I want his grandma to listen to it. And both find different ways of being entertained by it. So to be able to constantly be aware of that, kind of the identity is basically the artist's mission statement. So you always look back at their identity as like, all right, this is our bottom line, this is like what we're trying to achieve. But everything else, like building a brand, how that affects music, that starts to become way more into marketing. Marketing is psychological, and then the part of it is, staying true to, again, your mission statement. So it's a process, it's a battle, and it's like a constant, that's a deep question, because it's like, I guess that's the whole business that you're dealing with every single day. It's like, are we making the right music? Are we promoting the right music? Are we staying true to your values? Are we staying true to your identity? Are we getting to a next phase? Is your identity changing? Is what you're just going to represent as an artist or as a brand, is that changing? Is that growing? So, it's interesting. It's constant. I think that part of it is constantly changing. I think that understanding the artist's identity is the core value of the relationship, and it's like a mission statement, and finding that where art and entertainment meets within that is just a constant process, a constant evolution. And you don't want your first album or your 10th album to sound the same in most cases. So there's so much that happens between all.
Just add to what Matthew said. I think it's very important that artists really work on self-development, because even when you're talking about building a brand, it's very obvious when you say you're something, but it's obvious you're not that thing. And that's because you actually haven't worked on yourself to know yourself. I also feel once you do that, you also realize that there's room to grow as a human being. Because the truth is this, branding is just the ability to convince you that I say I am what I say I am. That's branding, right? And marketing is just creating strategies around that to facilitate that storytelling. I was speaking to Matthew off the grid, and I was basically saying how your celebrity is your marketing tool nowadays, because whatever video you put on your stories is what the blogs are going to take, right? And in order to actually build a brand that is interesting enough, you actually have to be interesting. But the way to be interesting is to be vulnerable, because you connect through vulnerability. And if you notice, most artists, their biggest songs are their most vulnerable songs, whether it's Whiskey or Joe Legba, whether it's Burna, Last, whether it's Thames Free Mind. And the truth is, you can craft your brand identity from that. Because with Thames, when we released Try Me, the whole brand that she carried was that brand of, overcoming basically, which till today is still the message. So I feel self-development is very, very important within an artist. And as a manager, I feel it's very important for you to keep studying the artist and studying the scape at which the artist has to live in, you understand? Because the music industry is very, very complicated. And like you said, artists are very introverted. So it's very hard for them to really come out of the shell and be like, this is who I am. So it's the job of the team to really take care of the mind of the artist so that it can be their best selves. And as a result, the whole branding and marketing thing is just the default thing of just being true to yourself. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think drawing off that point, that self-development is so fundamental. I think Veil has sort of made his artistry just a reflection of himself and his music, and the stuff he wears, the marketing, the rollouts, all of that is just true to him. And that's why I think, when we're sort of working on creative stuff together, I can suggest an idea, and he can be like, oh, I like that, because it's true to him. I'm not suggesting like some random thing that, will make him look cool, quote unquote, because it has like some big industry cosign. But more on self-development, I think, he finished this last album, Learn to Swim, and he released it. And he was like, I was wanting to work on an album after this night, and I don't know if I do anymore. And I was just like, maybe you just need to go out and live some more, experience life. And he's in India right now, first time overseas, so he's definitely like, he just texted me like a few days ago, saying, wow, I think I have a new album concept. I just, whether it's, heartbreak or falling in love or whatever, it's, he's 18 years old, there's so much life to live for the both of us, and that's just gonna shape his music. I remember one of my mentors told me a story about an artist he worked with that, it took him 2 years or so to finish an album, and then after he released that album, he made like 3 albums in a month after that he all released. And I asked him like, how did he do it? And he just lived. And I think like on the surface level, it's like, when you just live, like, yeah, I do that every day. But, kind of what you were saying about artist vulnerability, it's the living that makes them want to write and try and articulate how they're feeling and how they're growing and what current state they're in. And sometimes that state is the same as the last album or it's different, but sort of just allowing them to express what they want to express. Because like we're saying, artists are introverted and they are so articulate and like well-spoken and just there's so much going on in there, but to get them to show that to people is really difficult sometimes. And sometimes it's going back to what we're saying about decision making. It's really being like, I think this is a really good record. I know it's vulnerable and you might not want to put it out, but I think people would resonate with it. And it's even like him sending me a demo and then me being like worried about it because he thinks like it's like not that good. And me being like, this is some of the best writing you've shown me. So yeah, and the artists are just like unsure of themselves sometimes, and they just need that affirmation to release their best work. So I think everybody made some really good points.
I would just add that artists are people like all of us, and that what makes an artist different from the 4 of us who are sitting here, the 5 of us who are sitting here, is that they choose art as the vehicle for their self-expression, and as the vehicle for their ability to comment on the world around them and how they feel the world around them. There are some artists who do not know who they are, and so they have more difficulty expressing themselves and translating the pain and joy of human existence. There are artists who have a very deep and profound understanding of themselves, but may not necessarily know where their market is. And you know, our job is to work with the artist to, and first of all, I try to work with artists who have a very deep understanding of who they are. Because it's very difficult. I can't tell somebody who they are. They need to discover that for themselves. So, in working with somebody who knows who they are and who is skilled at being able to express that in a way that creates a sense of connection, a sense of community, our job is to figure out how to effectively market that and connect with audiences and to find those audiences wherever they may be. And to put together plans that support the capacity of the artist to continue to further express themselves. One last note, and that's just this, that some artists don't do their own songwriting and production. It's more common today than it was maybe 20 years ago, but you know, 25, 30 years ago, the biggest artists in the
That's the
world.
only way Motown, like,
Yeah.
everywhere you go make a record and say, let's see who's the best, reggae,
Exactly. They weren't.
Michael Jackson, let's see which one of y'all gonna work.
Right, they weren't writing their own, and I actually think that there's some artists who benefit from using songs that are written from them, to be totally honest, because they too need the help in order to express what it is that they want to express. Like, we can't forget about songwriters. Songwriters are so incredibly important. And they do a service too in helping to translate our thoughts and emotions and feelings. And so, but then the job of a manager, particularly if you're a manager of an independent artist, or even when you are a manager of a signed artist, is to help find songs that make sense for your particular artist. You know, like people send me songs all the time, and I'm like, well, that wouldn't make any sense for any of my guys. You know, like that would be crazy. Why would you even send that to me? I actually yell at people when they're so off base. But you know, sometimes people send something, and I'm like, that's kind of dope. You know, like sometimes people send a beat. I'll hear a random beat come from someone, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I bet that so-and-so artist on my roster could really use this. Maybe make something great out of it.
Because I think with music artists, because artists is like, anybody can be an artist, not being an artist, but anything can be an artist. But as a music artist, you're also just, you're a vessel for a message, constantly. So even if you're not the one writing the song, you're the person standing behind the song that's making that song have meaning and a deeper connection beyond just the words on a piece of paper or the melodies. And it's the delivery, and I think that goes into the entertainment part of it too. Like it's just a music artist they stand alone. Like everything is on their back. They're the director, they're the main actor, they're the side actor. Like the whole vision is on them. So they have a lot more pressure than I think any kind of art form out there, because it's all about them and their face and their voice standing behind everything that they're creating constantly. So yeah, at times it's nice to have songs that they can connect with, because their job isn't just making the song. Their job is standing behind the song, being the deliverer of the message, going out there performing the song, going out there when their life is fucked up, but using that song to make your life better. They're sick, doing 30 shows in a row for 2 months, and they're doing that for people who are affected by the art. So yeah, there's so many pieces of the puzzle, and so many ways that the pie gets divvied up in terms of the creative process that it's kind of hard to look at artists and be like, because you didn't write a song, it's less or than. It's maybe without them performing the song would never have any value, because they're the person that can actually like bring the life to that moment, into that idea and that story that was written. So yeah, I think music artists are kind of a whole different standard of artists across.
Yeah. It's also why it's very hard to humanize them, because they're literally the embodiment of art in physical form. You see them on TV and forget that they probably had a bad night, the night before the show, and you expect them to perform. You expect them because this is what they told you they were in the song. And then it's a rinse and repeat process, so it can also feel mundane sometimes for them, which is why it's very important to live. It's very important to have new experiences, so that even within what feels repetitive, you have new things to be excited about, and that translates into your growth. So yeah, fundamentally self-awareness, because even artists getting songs to sing that aren't theirs, it requires you to know that, yo, this is my bag, like this is what I do. There's some artists that are more authentic to their craft, are more attached to their work, so it's more like, no, I must write everything, I must produce everything, I must engineer everything, I am him, I am her. That's some artists. But at the end of the day, it's really knowing yourself and your team being open to who that person is and working with that person to a point where they feel comfortable enough to be vulnerable enough to be the artist they need to be for the public.
Awesome. And then can you guys also speak to how where your artist is located regionally also plays into their storytelling and their authenticity?
Yeah, I'll talk about Vic a little bit. So Vic is from Chicago, Southside Chicago, and he's also Ghanaian. And I don't want to say too much about his album that's coming out, but you're going to hear a lot of those joint influences in the project. I really, sorry, I get emotional. I really love what he's created. I think he's created some of his best work. Sorry. I didn't expect that. Sorry? Yeah, he's really focused on bridging the diaspora and the continent. And he's been spending a lot of time in Ghana, making music with Ghanaians, and really thinking about the relationship between the South Side of Chicago and Accra, and what it is to be a Black American on the South Side of Chicago, with all of the different injustices and different things you're exposed to. And then also what it is to be in Accra, where everybody's Black. And you're surrounded by, it's not the same thing as it is when you're Black and in the United States. And so, he explores some of that. He explores in his music, he explores what's in his heart, what's on his mind, what's happening, thinking about what's happening in the world from a political perspective. But yeah, the location is, to me, for an artist like Vic, really essential to his work. For some of my other artists, it's not essential in the same way. They're not wrestling with the differences between, what it is to grow up in one community versus another community. They're wrestling with other things, and so maybe place becomes something different for them than a territory, a physical territory. Maybe it's a mental space that they're exploring, or maybe it's different colors or different hues that they're exploring, or just different life experiences, right? We should be flexible in terms of what we think about when we say, what is your region, what is your space, what is your land? Because that can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. But I think that identity and location when it comes to an artist like Vic is, it's like right there.
Just piggyback on everything you said. So for me personally, the way I see location is nature and nurture, right? Artists are inspired by the things around them and the life that they live in, the environment that they're in. And I'm coming from Lagos, Nigeria, so anybody that knows anything about Lagos, it's tough, right? But it's interesting because regardless of how tough it is, people pick different things to inspire them, and as a result, make music off the back of what is true to their experience in Lagos. For example, I'll use Whiskey, who is a very good friend of mine. He's frustrated, right? But he uses his music as an escape to make people dance. Then you have an artist like Burna, who is more telling you how bad the government is, etc. Then you have an artist like Thames, who is basically saying, look, at this point in time, I'm tired, you guys, or even if you guys are trying to do this, I'm not going to let you guys do this. So different people have different ways in which they approach, their process, but the location is primarily what gives the artist the inspiration to actually produce art. So I feel it's quite important where you are, because the music Thames is making now is completely different from the music that she made then, and that's because she's in some hill in LA. before she was in some room in Lagos where there was no lights, and she would have to use the torchlight sometimes to fix wires and stuff. So location definitely plays a part in terms of the artists I work with. So that's what
I would say inspiration and also response, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully everybody here is aware of Vic's track 16 Shots. You know, that was a response to something that happened in Chicago where the police shot a man 16 times, right? It's a really powerful and important track. It also caused him, you know, you have to be careful when the police are too close by because I think they're still angry on the song. But that's part of the power of great art, is to be able to respond to the environment and the place that you find yourself in.
reflect the times.
Yeah, I mean, across, so our roster of that is a bunch of different artists. So he is Filipino, but he grew up from New Jersey, Florida, and California. Uni's half black, half Japanese, but she's from Seattle. Burna is full-on African, Nigerian. But then even behind his scenes, his mother's Yoruba, his father's Igbo, his father's actually from River State, so he's like a whole different kind of Igbo. You know what I'm saying? So even that behind the scenes is his own cultural dynamics. But then he grew up with a worldview, like his mom speaks 7 languages, and took his Paris from when he was 7 years old. Even G over here, he's from the Bay, and also went to college in New Orleans, and now we're actually working on his next album. And we're going through the track list, and it's like, wait, hold up, where's our true moment to the Bay? Like, maybe should like, again, it's like that identity conversation where that's the mission statement. It's like, are we sticking to the mission statement? Are we sticking to like what's true to the artist's core? And a lot of times, where you're from and who you're inspired by, or the environments you're in, are very much part of that core understanding of the kind of music and the kind of art you're trying to put out there. But then along the way, you're figuring yourself out. Like with Umi, she grew up with just her mom raising her in Seattle and her mom's from Japan. So she speaks Japanese fluently, writes in Japanese, goes to Tokyo all the time. But her father is African American and doesn't have that same kind of relationship with him. She moves to LA, goes for college, goes to USC. All of a sudden, the only people that are coming up to you are like, "Do you want to join the Black Student Union?" Or "Do you want to," you know what I'm saying? And she had to go through this process of re-identifying herself as, "Oh, I'm also a black person," because she grew up so Japanese and in Seattle in like a more kind of situation where she was very much a minority. So that she went through a whole process on this last album, like understanding her blackness as much as she already understood her Japanese side, already understood her feminine side. So it's a constant like, is that where you're from is like a basis point, but who you are and what you are is the part of just like self-identity development. I guess go back to artist development again. It's just like, as an artist who goes through time, anybody goes through time, you're understanding yourself more, you're understanding your history more, your culture more, your parents more, what you fuck with, what you don't fuck with, how all those things are constantly ruminating in your head and allowing you to express yourself. But yeah, your environment and where you're from seems to be like such an important baseline, but a lot of times, again, you go back to like, it's like, yeah, but I think Burna's a really good representation of that. I feel like he speaks so poorly to what he wants to say in Nigeria, but if you actually go through the breadth of his catalog, he's really speaking to the world constantly. We definitely have moments where it's like October 10th, 2020, the song we was obviously protest music about what was happening in Nigeria at that time. During COVID, even the album Twice as Tall was like a very dark album because we made it all over Zoom during the middle of COVID. And this is a guy that, we're normally in a room full of 40 people doing the song. So I feel like where you're from is one thing, but where you're at in the moment, and then all the constant learning you're doing about yourself, whether it's internally or externally, it all kind of plays a role in the final art pieces that go out there. And that changes over time.
it's very rare I meet an artist that doesn't have a super eclectic music taste. You know, I'll be with some of my artist friends sometimes, and they'll start playing like Britney Spears or some crazy like old stuff. I'm like, what? Like, I would not expect you to listen to that. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that speaks to where an artist is from. You know, where they're from. Obviously, there's the city's culture, but it's who they're growing up around. For, you know, Redveil, for example, he grew up with his brothers who were showing him his sort of newer musical influences like Odd Future, but then he has his mom who's playing like gospel music and old stuff, and then he has his dad who's playing 90s rap, and it's just, I think artists, they draw from so much around them, they take a little piece of everything, and it's, you know, even, I think a lot of artists, for example, they are very influenced by where they come from directly, but, you know, some artists, where they're from, you know, they might not have had the best relationship with it, and they sort of want to speak about their, I guess, distaste for where they're from or their relationship with that. So although artists can really value where they're from, they can also have the 180-degree relationship with that. And I think, back to what you were saying about nature versus nurture, obviously there's things where you grow up that are just sort of gonna influence you. You know, for example, Veil really likes really loud bass in his songs, but he also really likes jazz chords because that's what his parents would have listened to growing up. So he likes fusing those two elements together. And obviously part of that is his parents showing him jazz music, but then the bass is that's just pure DMV music. Everything he shows me just like makes the speakers clip. So yeah, I think, I don't think location is just purely geographic. I think it encompasses so much more. As
a bassist myself, I appreciate that.
So I'm going to give you guys a somewhat vague question, and you can take it any direction you want. Can you speak to some of the challenges that come with being a music, or actually rather just being in the music industry, and also specifically with your musicians?
I mean, the challenges are endless. We're at war.
This is on the record.
I mean, you know, that's how I look at it. Like, every day is a battle, and I mean, the positive and some positive, sometimes negative way. But yeah, I feel like there's so many challenges. I couldn't even know where to start. Again, like for me, I'm in a different position than everybody else. So that habit is like we have a record label, we have a management side. We also do distribution. So I always look at management as like you're a part of the 360, the artist career. There's not a part of the business, a part of their life. Anything that you're not directly involved with, whether it's being a therapist, being a best friend, being a lawyer, being a mom, being a dad, you know, being a bodyguard, being, you know, you're anything and everything the artist needs at any time. When you're the label, I see it like more you're like about 120 degrees of the box. You know, you're not the publisher, you're not touring, you're focused on the records, marketing the records, getting the album out. So those all have different battles and different challenges. Like just clearing a record, like I said, like the last, like honestly had not a lot of different outside powers got involved with that song could have taken a year to do. And that's just one song. And imagine you have 10 songs on the album. I don't know how Kanye does it, honestly. Like, I'm pretty sure they just put out, there's probably songs from 2010 that ain't cleared yet because there's so much to it. Or, you know, right now we made a song and we come to find out that the song that we sampled for that song is in contention, which means that a 30-year-old song has a bunch of money that it's made and it's just been piling up and nobody is allowed to touch it because, you know, rather than saying right now, you know, a song is 100% publishing, there's 150% worth of rights. So one person says they think they deserve 50%, another person says they think they deserve 50%, another person says they think they deserve 50%. There's only 100% to be divvied up. So now we can't even put out that song because, you know, the original song we sampled is in contention. None of the people want to budge. So it's kind of like every day is a different battle, just depending on what you're dealing with, or you know, you're going on tour and somebody gets COVID, and then you find out 3 people have COVID, and you know, it's I couldn't. I mean, I don't even know where to start. You know, challenges as challenges everywhere.
For that record, where you have the sample that.
I'm gonna sex you up.
So let's check offline, because I had that issue. I've had that issue 3 times, and we figured out a way to get it.
We get it done. Yeah, we went to them and said, "Well, can you guys know?"
Yeah, there was one case where we basically just had to settle it for them.
Yeah.
But then in another case, we ended up doing a legal maneuver in order to protect ourselves, so we could see the record out, while they dealt with the underlying issues.
We're talking about maybe like an escrow or something.
Yeah, that's exactly.
These guys are talking about business right. Yes.
We love what we do.
We love it. I mean, this is the way it is in the music industry, right? You're really in the human industry. So you deal with intangibles a lot, right? Because at the end of the day, it's music you're making. You can't hold it with your hand, right? And people can feel they deserve so many things. And it really starts with me personally, because I'm a manager, right? So it starts with the mental of my artist, right? Thames is a very, very interesting artist. And I speak to her every night, not about music, but about life. How is life? How are you? How are you feeling? What have you learned? Have you eaten today? You know, it's these little things. And then you can get to like records getting cleared or touring. Touring is very difficult. I remember the first time I toured, we had no tour manager, so it was literally me and my co-manager spending our money, using all our resources, and best believe we made a loss, right? And we went back to Lagos in tears, literally, because we were just trying to spread the gospel in the States, and it took everything out of us. And that's when we learned, we need a tour manager, right? And it varies on so many things that you can't even see coming. You can have a family member from God knows where come and tell you, oh, this is the way my daughter should. I'm like, what? Who are you? How did this happen? And it's because you're dealing with humans, and and human beings are very multifaceted. So all you need to do is just make sure you keep the main thing, and you don't get distracted by people that come to distract you. Because best believe, people have come to me talking about, oh, and this when I say come to me, I mean we've agreed on something, and then it does well, and then you come back and say, actually no, we want this percentage more, and I'm like, we signed already, you know. So it can be so many different things. But yeah, it's endless.
This is a really complex business, and there are a lot of people who do not have the skills to participate in the complexity of the business, and as a result of that, there are really grave mistakes that are made that have to be unwound or renegotiated or fixed, or just you deal with the fact that you've lost a lot of money. And so that's one of my issues with the business right now, is that this is a complex business. There are very few people, for example, who understand that part of the reason why the price of music is as low as it is today, and by that I mean what artists and rights holders earn off of their streams, is because there's a supply-demand problem, right? We have an excess supply of music. There's no way that the people who are alive today could ever listen to the 700,000 songs that are dropped every week, right? And so when you have supply that is so far spread from the demand, your price point falls. And I've not been able to have this conversation with anybody. I'm not, by the way, necessarily arguing that we massively gatekeep everything, although I do think that we do need to figure out how we can better price music for working commercial artists, rights holders, right? It's a real problem. Another thing that I've been thinking about a lot recently is that it wasn't the case previously that independent artists were using the same distribution vehicles as major label artists, right? But today, do-it-yourself artists, independent artists, everybody distributes music across the same platforms. And so what that means is that from the perspective of the consumer, it's not like I'm older than I think everybody at this table. and probably most people in this room. But when I was growing up, if I wanted to buy records by independent artists, I went to indie record stores and just looked at the artwork and was like, oh, that artwork is cool. And then I used my allowance. My parents were very generous. Thank you, Dad. I used my allowance to buy like crazy random stuff to discover new music. When I wanted to listen to major label artists, I went to Tower Records, I went to H&B, I went to Virgin, I went to the bigger record stores that carried all of that stuff, and I just went through the cards digging and finding things. So the distribution is totally different, and that's creating real problems because it's so much harder for us now to find our markets than it used to be. Another challenge, I think, with social media and with Twitter and all the number of people who hold themselves out to be experts in this business who fundamentally have no idea as to how the business works, is really, really high. And so that creates additional confusion in terms of what all of us up here are trying to do and what many of you in this room, I would anticipate, are trying to do as well. So, we need to fix the pricing mechanism on the distribution side. Music should have value. It costs us a lot of money to make it. It costs us a lot of money to market it. The idea that we almost have to pay to play sometimes, and we're making gambles on our artists and on their teams. It's a really strange environment that we're in right now. Any other industry, you wouldn't be operating perpetually at a loss across each of your different verticals, right? So the fact that we have tour deficit financing, which is tour support for major label artists, means that it makes it harder for independent artists and artists who don't have that to tour successfully because the venues aren't operating on the basis of, RCA, if it's Tim's or Boomy is going to cover the rest of this, or Rock Nation is going to cover this so that, Vic can show. But it doesn't always work that way, right? So there's all of these different... I'm sorry? I was, yeah. That's why I'm a good voice. You don't always get.
You don't always get what you
need.
Yeah. But I think it's also interesting with this world that we live in now because there's now platforms like Discord where you're able to take your real niche core fans and put them into a community and actually mobilize them and monetize it as well. I think that's the other good thing about, we are moving to the theory of zero, but music is basically just a marketing tool that's you're not really making money from, but you're using it as a way to create a brand and bring people in to then create, income to a bunch of different platforms, whether it's touring or merchandise or, whatever, with Uni, she's this year we started a tour with her as a meditation tour. So a big part of everything that she does is she's very holistic, she's very in tune with her spiritual side, and we were like, people are obsessed with you just because of the meditations and sound work and everything is built still around music. Sound baths and all stuff. Let's just do a tour of just your meditations. She made more money on that tour, which was the average night was probably 75 to 100 people, than she made on a tour where the average performing night was maybe 2,000 people. Because of the ticket price difference, the rent, it's a different experience. You're getting, a lot of what shows and tours now are about selling an experience. But yeah, I think as we do move to this theory of zero, where the content you're creating, you put on these platforms, especially when you're using DSPs or Netflix and all kinds of you're just giving them content so them to create, users. You have to find user information on the back end of Spotify. I can see, the number one city that Geek is streaming in, and it might be Adelaide, Australia. It's maybe we need to be focusing on going to Australia rather than doing the tour in America, because it might be easier to get to America for losing money here. We could go to Australia, maybe do a show that's way bigger, sell way more merch, maybe do do a collab project with a local artist. There's a lot more that you can get out of understanding the information that you're getting from these platforms, because you're not getting nearly as much money as they're getting out of you. So it's about kind of taking that information and then being all right, how do I re-navigate it to like building my business, especially at the independent level, because you have so much more control. At this point, when you get to the major level, you're about, I look at major label partnerships as we're going for it. Like now, we're no longer playing, we're no longer just feeding our niche. We want the baby to grandma to get our music, to get heard, and to get art. That's a whole different process and a whole different business. But in independent level, building independent business, I chanced it. Mac Miller did. I think when Mac went from being independent to doing his work deal, you also saw a global marketing campaign that you never saw with Mac Miller before. And I think it's why there's continued success on those projects to this day. But his core fans will tell you that, Donald Trump was probably the best, one of the most hugest moments in Mac Miller's career because, that identified, relationship with his core market. But yeah, there's other, like you said, music has really found a tough place in what its value is, but what it means to people and how you're able to use information that you get to create these environments and put them on a Discord and have real conversations with your closest fans constantly every day and feed them. There's never been tools like that before either, so you guys take a good look at that.
And it being in a tough place, I don't want to be too daunting. I can't imagine doing anything. I would never go back to practicing corporate law. I don't even think it would take me. But this is what I'm meant to do with my life, right? So, and this is what I am passionate about doing. I feel blessed that I get to do it. And what's really cool is that with all of the challenges that exist in the market today, there is just tremendous opportunity to build and to create and to think differently and to test things and to break even more rules. And because there don't seem to be any rules, to create our own rules. So I don't take the challenges as, oh, this isn't worth it. Take the challenges. If you've read Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, by the way, I highly recommend you read it. Take it as an opportunity to keep building community and to keep putting one foot in front of the other, one step in front of the other every single day.
That was a whole boatload of wisdom, so thank you so much for that. If we had a little bit more time, I would have loved to follow up on that sidebar between Matthew and Vinta and hear more about legal issues that you guys have come across in your industry. But since we really only have about 5 to 10 minutes, I'll open up the floor for Q&A, and hopefully we can take 1 to 2 questions. Here.
Sure, I can read contracts really fast, and I can negotiate them really fast because I have a decade and a half of reading substantially more complex contracts than anything that's presented in the music business. And so that's really the main advantage, is that I understand my way around a contract, I can spot issues faster, and because of that, I also understand, I try not to ever do legal work on behalf of my clients. All of my clients have separate legal counsel, but I can have a conversation with their attorneys, and I understand what the attorneys are saying, which means that it's also very difficult it is much less likely with my artists that there's like a phrase that I'm trying to access, and I'm not accessing it right now, but you can't hide the truth from them when they have a manager who understands what all of the business affairs and legal and lawyers are saying, right? Because I can ask questions just based off of my understanding of contracts and documents. Now, I'm not the only manager who can do that. There are managers who didn't go to law school who are just good looking at contracts. But what it does mean is that whereas there are many managers in the business who don't actually read all the contracts and feel like they have to rely on what attorneys are saying, I read everything alongside the attorneys, and I typically send them like a markup and an issues list, and then I say, you take it from here and tell me if there's anything I missed. So and what that does is it helps us make more money, to be honest.
We have time for one more question in the front row.
Hello, how's everyone doing? On tour. So, like you guys were saying, the music industry is in a place saturation and stuff like that. And, you know, with your expertise, do you guys still believe in finding natural talent or someone that stands out? And are you guys like ever looking for new talent? So you kind of like
Send us your tape.
Yeah, that was really much my question. Like, you guys, see, word. Yeah, but definitely, does that make sense?
I have a very full roster. However, I'm always looking for new talent because I'm also looking to grow my company. So I think that's probably all this year.
It's also the exciting part is like I was saying earlier, like the 12-year version of, I think all of us was, always finding something with record store or on SoundCloud, and that's what makes you be like. The fact that I can wake up tomorrow and hear a new artist that feels new and inspires me to be like, holy shit, like, what's up? Like, we have, at least we gotta know something. Like that makes this whole business kind of like, it's ever evolving. Like you never can settle because creativity never settles. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And naturally, what tends to happen is when you get to this position is people will sell music to you whether you're interested or not.
Yeah.
So the first thing is you must really love what you're doing. And for me personally, the filter is, do I love what you're doing? Like, do I hear the music? Does it move me? Do I feel something? Do I believe? You know, and I think that's fundamentally the thing. You have to be believable in what you're doing to actually make people interested, because what tends to happen is multiple people will be interested in the same artist. There's a girl right now that's doing incredibly well in Nigeria. Her name is Burna. I'm late to the party. I discovered so many people already on her was because I've been out. It was because eventually she's been doing this thing where she just releases music online and she's just consistent at it. So for me, it's not really even going to beg people. It's not attracting people. Whoever you chase will run away from you, right? So just make yourself known and leave it. Just keep working and you'll come. Because you never know. It's a lot of work, but you keep trying. Because you love it at the end of the day. I'd rather do that than working anywhere else.
Before we officially wrap up, I would love it if you guys could share one piece of advice, some parting words with our audience to really help them in their music careers and journeys.
One piece of advice. I mean, just constantly like seek more knowledge, like you're doing right now. The game is constantly changing. Everything is constantly evolving. Like, go and seek information. Go and seek knowledge. Go and get better. And be honest with yourself above all things. Like I feel. I guess sometimes you can trick yourself into something, but I think that being honest with yourself and what you're doing, where you're trying to head to, is so important. Because and your team should be honest with you as well. I feel like you have a bunch of yes men around you, you're never going to get to where you're supposed to get to. Your team should be telling you no, and that should feel good.
What I would say is, don't compare yourself. I think that's what I would say. That's a huge advice I would give you, because that steals the joy out of what should be your passion and your dream, because the industry is very distracting, especially when you climb up. And the truth is, it's easy to fall out of love with it. I know so many people that started, doing music just based out of the love of it, but then the business comes and then it's a whole different thing. And usually it's because what tends to happen, even if they don't understand the business, they see the business of another doing well, and it's more like, why isn't that happening for me? But because God didn't create two of the same thing, that means that there's not two of the same paths to walk, you understand? And you're never behind, it's just the path you walk, so don't compare yourself to anyone. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think with that, that's really, really good advice. I think with that, everybody's business, like personal business in the music industry, is so different from one another that you really can't see what so-and-so is doing or so-and-so is doing. You can kind of use them as a frame of reference, but you can't really, you're never going to be able to mirror what someone else's business or career decisions are. And with that being said, I think it's just, you need to surround yourself with good people and also really expect the unexpected. Like, I cannot stress that enough. You can plan. I'm a very big planner. I plan everything, like day-to-day, everything. Plan, written down, plan. There's just gonna be so many things that just pop up that you're just like, where did this come from? So I think with that being said, you just kind of gotta be prepared for that, and when something does come up, keeping your head on straight and not freaking out, because pros don't freak out. Yeah, that's what I would say.
So you got to know that if you're going to enter this business, you're already in it, but you have to understand that it's changing constantly. And so this isn't a business where you develop expertise and then things stay the same. This is a business where you develop expertise and you prepare, and what you're prepared for is the fact that things are going to be able to change, that things are going to change. And that by being well prepared and having deep expertise, you're able to apply that to imagine a new future in a new way. And then the only other piece of advice I would share with you, I mentioned my father in my first remarks, so I'll close by mentioning my father again. After he encouraged me to enter into this business, several years after that, he passed away. And what my father would always say to me, and the reason why I think that I've been able to do what I've gotten to do in this business is to remember who you are, remember why you're doing what you're doing, to keep going, keep pushing, keep loving, and not to quit. You have to believe in what you're doing to be successful in this business. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be open to building relationships with new and different people and exposing yourself to new and different things every day. You're going to have some incredibly high moments, and you're going to have some incredibly low moments. It's the nature of this business. You know, 1 minute, everybody here on this panel, we're riding high, and the next minute we could be riding low for a variety of different reasons. So just be prepared for the change, and remember who you are and why you're doing this, and you should be okay.
Thank you so much to each of you for taking time out of your busy schedules and spending time here with us today, and for also just dropping gems and speaking so candidly. Let's give them another round of applause. I'm not being rude. I have to go to the airport. This is the nature of what we do. But anybody who wants to keep in touch with me, you can send me a DM to, I guess, Instagram. My Instagram is, what is it? It's B-A-T, B as in boy, A-T-N-I-B. It's been to B backwards. So just send me a DM and we can stay in touch that way. Thank you.
Let's give it up for the amazing panelists one more time. Got hear it loud, please. A set by Gift DJ here. So once again, thank you guys for amazing panelists. You guys gave amazing information, and we appreciate it. For real, these some people you can't pay to sit with. Like they're right here. You know what I'm saying? After a pandemic, this is crazy. Thank you guys, for real. All right, let's get it.